Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Welcome to the show. As you can tell, we are doing something a little bit different today. I apologize for no video. I know you would love to see our beautiful faces, but we've got technical issues, and if you only knew the struggle of what was involved just to get us this far. However, I am joined today by a friend of this channel, Wiccan Conservative. How are you today, ma'am?
Hello, Briganti. I am super excited to be here. Despite our technical difficulties, we will prevail because the message is the key. How are you today?
Oh, I've got my dunce cap from the technical difficulties. I've eaten my slice of humble pie, and I'm just thrilled that we finally overcame it all. So,
That's right. That's right. It's
we've
very relevant to the theme today, so I think it's all in due process. Everything will be revealed.
quite so. It was as the universe willed it. That's what we'll go with. Because we do have a bit of a sticky wicket with the topic we're going to cover today. The initiation issue. I can't think of anything that has pitted solitaries, natural witches, anyone from a non-initiatory tradition more at odds with these hyper-traditionalist, hyper-initiation is the end-all be-all type of mindset. It's because nothing says peace and harmony, does it? Then when a
Not
traditional,
quite.
yeah, when a traditionalist comes into the room and tells everyone who doesn't do things their way of, well, you're not actually witches. And we're like, okay, so do you think that we're delusional or do you think that we're liars? Either way,
It's sad.
yeah, it is.
It is sad.
It just
You
seems
know,
like
and it
it'd be better to start off with something non-controversial like hello, my name is, or our favorite colors are. But no, just let me deny your existence and that'll work really well.
Well, it does. It drives a wedge that is very hard to overcome, and especially when the focus should be on philosophical ideas and not club mentality. But I digress. That seems to be the claim to fame, or at least that's what I've been discovering. And I know that it's been a really, really long process that the witches and Wicca crew has kind of gone through to get to this point. But I think we need to talk about it. I think we need to understand what's causing the divide and how we can start to get over it.
Oh, 100%, because the fact that this old bone keeps getting dragged out at all, it's really getting past the point of ridiculousness. And really, I think the conflict, and tell me what you think of how I'm framing this, I think it comes down to this the question of, is the power of a witch innate? Is it something the individual is born with? The same way a person would be born with any other talent, you just happen to have it for magic. Or is this power something that has to be conferred through a pretty hefty process of an initiation? Does that seem like a fair way to put this?
It's an interesting perspective, and I think one that brings one of the biggest questions to our religion to the forefront of the conversation, and that is what we are doing actually real? Can it
Mm-hmm.
be quantified? And as you said, do you innately inherit these talents or can you learn these talents? And I think the answer is nuanced and coupled because a lot of young witches are called to the craft through their own abilities. That's how they even get started seeking some of the answers that they're looking for. But they also do need some sort of education process to hone those gifts. So I think you're very, very on the nose with your assessment of what we're looking at, but it overlaps.
Yeah, there is definitely something to be said because talent alone, like any other talent, that's never enough. I mean, you might see a kid who has great talent for some kind of sport. Well, if they never practice, if they never study about what makes them better, if they don't take care of themselves physically, if they don't train, well, you might have a great well of talent, but it's not going to get you onto the professional level. And I think it's very similar with the craft. Is that we do have to develop what we have, but what happens if someone doesn't have anything to develop, and then they get initiated, and then all this power goes into them, and poof? I mean, that's kind of a scary thought for me as well.
For sure. And especially if you're a normie who agrees with philosophy but doesn't necessarily understand the other aspect of the craft. And you and I always talk about two different aspects. Myself, I like to decipher them as a traditional religion and a actual working science. Because I think it's very easy for people who aren't familiar to kind of grasp those things that they're separate. Whenever you're talking about absorbing some sort of extra energies or power, if you will, from external forces, because you don't inherit them yourself, that could be a very overwhelming and scary process, especially if you've never actually felt anything naturally before. Could you imagine?
Oh, I shudder to think. I think that would be very traumatizing. And one of the things I think about is that as you're getting kind of this transfusion of energy, I think, well, what happens when we get physical transfusions? You know, your liver goes out and you get a liver transplant or something of that kind. Well, the people who go through that, they have special medical needs for the rest of their lives. They have to take immunosuppressants so that their body doesn't reject it because, you know, it knows that it's foreign to it. And I do find
Mm-hmm.
myself kind of speculating if there's any kind of equivalence when it comes to, you know, having this unintended magical awakening through the process of initiation, and then someone has all these perceptions. Now, I can understand if someone, you know, was not born with any kind of talents of this sort and they get initiated and suddenly they have abilities. I can understand why they might think that it would be a necessary process. But I think that if you are born with capabilities, I don't think you would have anything to gain by it. I don't think you would get anything through initiation beyond extra trouble. It just seems like it would be better to naturally develop, to go through the discipline and the skill and the hard work and the studying and let yourself naturally evolve. I don't think that initiation would actually help a person who is a natural.
Well, I think that your analogy really hit on the head. That's a perfect analogy. It's very similar to a blood transfusion, the way that I view it. So, when we're talking about taking on energy, the most important thing is being compatible with that energy. And this is also another misstep of young witches. They're so excited about all these new things that they're learning that they can be integrated with and how they can build upon it, that they are taken advantage of a lot by people who use and feed off of energy, especially young energy,
Mm-hmm.
and also the the excitement of it all. So they want to hurry up and put all these values into this person's head before that person ever had a chance to realize, hey, is this compatible with who I am? So back to the blood transfusion. The doctor has to know that if you're AB positive, O blood probably isn't going to help you as much as the AB positive is going to help you. So, there's certain things that you can supplement and incorporate to make it work. But your analogy again rings true. If you don't continue with the proper proceedings to make that a part of your everyday life, then you have the problems. And I think that's also another uh, issue that the witch covens get into is now they're making their initiates dependent upon that group activity in order to feel like they are practicing or that they're worshiping properly or that they have the abilities that they have because again they feel that they can't hone those skills on their own, that these are gifts bestowed upon them through the generosity of others.
Yeah, and isn't that a terrifying thought of, oh, you know, okay, I have access to this, but it doesn't actually belong to me. And just knowing that it is something foreign within your own system. And as you were bringing up about how you would have to go through special care in order to make sure that you were integrating these energies and learning how to process them, I mean, just imagine the person who perhaps maybe that's beyond them. They're not going to be able to, and yet they're going to be hooked up for the rest of their lives. I mean, it is a dangerous thing, and I do think that there should be a little bit more I don't want to say openness and honesty because I don't think that anyone who's natural is not being upfront about that. I just think it should be made, people should be made aware a lot sooner in the process that if they go to that step of initiation, that there are permanent long term consequences.
For sure. And a lot of young witches, especially when Wicca first came onto the scene, they got sucked into that type of behavior. And unfortunately, that's how we got kind of bulked in with people like Aleister Crowley and
Mm-hmm.
the issues that a lot of the Gardenian witches went through when they switched over to the Alexandrian tradition, had their own can of worms. But a lot of people won't even go into that history because of all the other things that they're bombarded with when they kind of reach out to a group in order to get involved. The first thing is always, well, what's your background and how far away are you from everything? And they kind of confuse the person to where they stop asking questions that are relevant to progressing on their own path and start asking questions more as to how can I integrate with your path. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I'm glad you brought up the difference in teaching techniques because there's a certain school of thought, and I count myself among them, that says that if you are teaching someone about basic concepts of the craft, the goal is to make them independent to where they do not need you. If they are consulting with you, it is because they respect your opinion or because they became friends with you, but they don't need you. Whereas with the coven setting and the initiatory traditions, it is always comes back to that group, and it's always what they think, and it's always these predetermined conclusions, and that people are just supposed to wedge themselves into that box.
Yeah, a lot of covens have a lot of different roles, and I've noticed this throughout. Oh, I've been on this path for about 22 years now. So being converted when I was 15, knowing that I was questioning the way that I was born and raised and my surroundings, I was kind of inspired to just go and research about everything. And of course, when I settled on Wicca and witchcraft, the things that were being thrown up in the 90s about the cult mentality was definitely something to look into because you had Manson and his cult, and then you had the Jones tribe and the things that they did. So, getting involved in any type of activity where you lose yourself in the process is always a dangerous undertaking. And you can be very, very influenced by these things if you're not educated, or if somebody is purposely directing you to materials that keep any type of negativity off of them. Not saying that all covens are bad because they're absolutely not. But these are the things that we've noticed as Wicca has become more genuinely accepted of behaviors of these people who force others to practice in a group setting.
Yeah, especially if there's just no need for it. I mean, so many books have been published on Wicca and the practice of witchcraft and magical theory. Is that if you pick up a book and you really study and you go through the exercises, you go through your paces, and you make this a disciplined daily practice, if you have the capacity, you can progress, you can do the thing. And the idea that you would have to absolutely get someone else, I think that is a terrible thought to plant inside people's heads. Because if how about something that's more practical concern? Because we all know there's going to be a time in our lives when it's just us, we're it. There's some sort of something going on. We have to make the decision. We can't lean on anybody else. We can't call anybody else. We're going to have to know and then make the best of whatever the situation is. That happens in witchcraft as well. We it's better for people to go in with that of okay, if I need to be on my own and I have to be the only person to deal with the situation, I want to make sure I'm training myself in the knowledge and skills that I can. Whereas someone who's it's all about the group and I always have to go back to the group and I have to go back to my elders and I have to do what other people say and the way that they say it, well, when that person's off on their own, you know, not only may they not know what to do or have any idea about how to think their way through it, but they could be in panic mode. I mean, don't you
Yeah,
think?
it's very reminiscent to the Catholic Church, although you don't see very many people running around telling Catholics that don't belong to a particular church that they're not Catholic. So in that aspect, they go through the baptismal process, which I always bring back to the initiation process and kind of mirrors uh, the way that it goes. The only difference is that you choose to be initiated. Now, in some traditions, you do choose to be baptized as well. I know that
Mm-hmm.
that's very popular now, that Catholics are holding off baptizing young children in order to allow the child to make their own decisions or the person to make their own decisions. But we don't tell them that they are any less of followers, or they don't act like they believe in their God any less. So it just always struck me funny that, covens would be quite snobbish to independent solitary practitioners, as if they weren't granted the same capacity to learn as learning from some one particular person or group of people who told you what to learn.
Oh, you're gonna love this example, because in the Jehovah's Witness world, they are that kind of snobby, 100%. They honestly believe they are the only true Christians. No one else really has a right to the name. It's all false religion. They think that the Catholics are as unholy as Buddhists or pagans or anything else. They reject it all. You gotta do it their way. You gotta come in through their process. You gotta study with them. You've got to accept what they say. You gotta do their baptism with them, and then you're one of them. And then you look out on the rest of the world, and then you can reflect on what sinners apparently everyone else is. So that mindset of some of the worst covens, I was raised with that. I'm not proud of it, but it is something I 100% understand how that thought process works, and how you can work yourself up into believing that. I think it's a manifestation of I'm so special syndrome. To where
Yes,
I honestly do. I mean, we have
yes.
examples all over the internet of people doing really peculiar things, and if we stopped and think about it, it really is about them getting attention and some kind of recognition. And I see this mentality of I and only I have the true religion. I and only I am part of a proper tradition of witches, and everyone else is just a charlatan or a fake or a crazy person. It's like, oh, I'm just so much better, and I now don't have to do anything to earn self esteem because they told me I can take it from this misplaced sense of righteousness. Ooh.
Sure. And that type of mentality does them no favors, because the people who are fleeing that type of tyrannical religion are looking for the openness and the exception that Wicca and witches are supposed to be preaching. And again, we've talked about what our perceptions of life after death are, and both
Mm-hmm.
of us have said how near and dear our paths are to our heart, because it predicts what will happen to our souls eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately speaking, again, not only would you be faced with many issues that you have to tackle on your own, but just because Johnny down the street went to Coven every single day, was in the rituals every single day, say he went home and never did any personal deity work or any reflection time through meditation. Now, is he putting in the same amount of work as, say, Susie is? And she's going home and doing all those things and practicing on a daily basis. Why would his inclusion with the group guarantee him the set path? It's the same thing as a Catholic or a Jehovah's Witness type of mentality, saying that, oh, well, as long as I go to this building every Sunday and I say the right things, then I'm saved. And look at me, I'm so great because I can do these one little things, and that makes me great.
I mean, it's a really disturbing mindset, and the more you pick it apart, the more you just see just how unhealthy it is and how it prevents people from growing. Because let's face it, if you think that you're just fantastic, how hard are you going to work on self improvement? Are you going to even acknowledge that you have faults?
No, absolutely not. And even when you come up with a problem or a conflict or something is not quite right, you're constantly analyzing everybody else when you very may well cause that problem yourself.
Yeah. That's one of the benefits of being a solitary is that if you screw up, you want someone to blame, you can go yell at the mirror because the reflection of the person that's who's to blame. 100%.
There is no scapegoating. And, you got to give a lot of us credit because, you know, you and I have both said that we're on different paths and we have different missions.
Hmm.
Your mission is ultimately, and kind of why we're doing the show today, is to reach out to those who are on their own, who don't know if they're doing it right, and have all of this negative feedback in their news feeds and on YouTube and through all these different channels and telling them, oh no, you're not doing it right. You're not one of us. You can, yes, you are. If it feels right and it's working for you. Now, there's exceptions for you psychos out there who want to just be mean to everybody all the time. It doesn't work like that. You're not getting the point of the religion. But if you're sincerely soul searching out there, you're not alone. And chances are you're not doing it wrong. Don't let anybody disinvalidate your point
Oh,
because what you're doing is important.
oh, absolutely. And as you say, if it all based on did it work? Is it working? Is it helping? And I think we have to kind of start inculcating this mentality of this is results oriented. And honestly, not all of us master all of the skills. For instance, in divination, I'm very good with the tarot. Put me down with the crystal ball and ask me to scry, and you're going to have a good long wait. And it's just because that's not something that's a natural flow and fit for me. Other people, they pick it up like that. It's as if they were always meant to do it. And also, we should keep in mind there's usually more than one way to get a job done, whether it's divination or how we're doing a spell. So much of it just comes down to different techniques.
Well, I have a meme that I'm going to share with the Discord group later, and it popped up on my feed. I thought it was really fitting for today. It says, stranger. So does all that crystal woohoo stuff really work? What do you gain from it? And then it says, me. I don't gain anything, but I lost fear, anxiety, stress, a whole list of negative things. And I just kind of paused and reflected on it for a moment because realistically speaking, that is the heart of Wicca. That is the heart of witchcraft. We do not practice our religion to gain from others. We practice our religion so that we can maintain balance with ourselves in the universe. So as long as you are not looking for a constant gain, then I would say you're probably on the right path.
Oh, I would agree with you 100% about that. So many books on my shelf, they talk about the great work, and they always emphasize this is the real point. This is about you sorting yourself out and you being able to become the best version of you that you are capable of being at any one time. That's what it's all about. I mean, everything else is a derivative of that. It's a consequence of that. And as you become better within yourself, things around you automatically become better because you are, whether through magic or through mundane means, having a better effect on the world around you. And I mean, shouldn't that be the purpose of all religion?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is to make yourself the best version of you. And sometimes that's by learning that you can't always have what you want, that you
Mm-hmm.
can't always get your way, that you are stronger than what you think you are, and going through strife because I think a lot of people get it confused and think that, oh, well, I'll just use magic to make sure that nothing bad ever happens to me again. That's not the case, and that's not going to happen because that's not how nature exists. So, again, you need to be very honest with yourself. You have to have an open mind and be prepared for coming into contact with people who might not think the same way that you think. And by being prepared, that means firm enough in your beliefs to explain how you got there.
Yes, absolutely. I'll always be able to show your work, as all of our math teachers used to tell us. And the nice thing is that when you are running into other practitioners and you do kind of have these back and forth discussions, sometimes they will say something and you realize, oh, well, I was kind of cockeyed about that. And then, you can go away and you can reflect on that. And then someone just taught you, and they may not have even realized that they taught you anything. And so many lessons come through casual conversations or just kind of these one-off encounters where someone brings something up that you just hadn't thought of yourself. We are not at a loss of teachers. We just have to know that no one can do the learning for us. That always comes back on us.
That's right. And you will find yourself in many different places through many different periods of time. But what's always stood true to me, and something that we should all be aware of, is that everything happens for a reason. And we may not know that reason until much, much later and way after the fact when it's no longer relevant. But no, it happened for a reason.
And sometimes we get so much benefit from the worst of our experiences. As I've
Yes.
mentioned on the channel and to you many times, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. That is a cult. That is not a good experience to have in your background. No one needs that kind of mental entanglement. However, because I had that, it helps me understand the mindset of people who have fallen prey and who are in the thrall of indoctrination. And also, because Jehovah's Witnesses have their school to teach people how to go knock on doors and tell them, "Let me tell you all about why your religion is wrong and mine is right, and how you need to agree with me." If nothing else, you come away with a little bit of a backbone. And
Sure.
I mean, tell me a quality we need more in society than people with backbones right now. And so I learned how to construct an argument, and since then
Um,
I've learned how to construct better arguments that aren't based on sophistry. Would I have any of that without that horrible upbringing? Unlikely.
no,
So sometimes we
no.
have to learn to say thank you for even the worst of our life experiences.
We sure do. And I think that's one thing that witches do well is that we can look at lemons and say, hey, that's a whole gallon of lemonade you got sitting right there. So, again, experience is not always a nice teacher, but experience is a great teacher every single time.
Oh, a very effective teacher. Now, I want to take us a little bit back to the claims to fames of those who believe in initiation as being an absolute necessity. One of the arguments I've heard them go back to again and again is the idea that, well, they have access to the mysteries. It all comes back to the mysteries, and they know the mysteries, and the implication is that if you are not initiated, that you don't. So, you've been doing a lot of reading on this general topic lately, and I want to give you first crack at this.
Sure, sure. Mysteries is such a subjective term because what's mysterious to me may not be mysterious at all to you. So, what kind of mysteries? I always ask myself, are we talking about? Is it the mystery of how you call the watchtowers? Is it the mystery of which goddess or god you bring to the circle? Is it the mystery of what exactly? I don't understand. And if we're talking about personal mysteries, things that are revealed by the god and goddess to you, who are you to share those mysteries with anybody or even to brag about those mysteries? Because again, what the god and goddess reveal to you could be very different than what they reveal to me, considering no two paths are the same. So I tend to laugh off the mysteries of the coven because there are quite a few mysteries that through sanitation, divination, all the soul searching work that you can do have been revealed to me, and it might not be anything super special or impressive to you, but for me, they were linchpins to the way that I am presently.
I have to go along with that again. I do think that's a lot of the so-called mysteries that we encounter. It is things that is very tailored to us, and I've learned this as I've been doing more intensive deity work. It's that so much of it, it's just about it is coming back to you. What are you up to? What are you going through? How are we sorting this out? Are you actually making use of your own qualities, your own intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
your own talents? And it isn't about the lessons that other people need to learn. I've never been in a deep path working meditation with Loki, and he said, so about Bob and Sharon. Here's what I'd really like you to
No.
let them know. I mean, it doesn't happen. I mean, if anything, the conversations go, more along the lines of, so that chore list I gave you, where are we at with that? I mean,
Right.
that's more so what it feels like. And as for, other mysteries, if we're talking about the mysteries of, say, life and death, or the mysteries of creation, and just that point of when something new is born into the world, I mean, these are big, huge things. And I don't think that a process of initiation is going to result in some kind of divine revelation that I can't find on meditation. And I'm not sure it even gets you there faster. Because as we mentioned,
No.
if you've got a normie going through initiation and suddenly poof, they've got all this stuff, I'm not believing for a minute that they are processing that in such a way that if they did get something that was above and beyond what the rest of us have, that they would be able to comprehend it in that moment. I just,
Exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah,
100%.
yeah, I just don't believe it. It does not pass the smell test, and I
No.
maybe that's what we should talk about next. About how when someone is presenting their view to us, of always measuring it against what we can see of reality, and does their argument actually pass the smell test or not?
Well, again, I think that it depends on your actual perception of reality because I consider myself to be quite the realist. So if I am, here's a good one. I'm running late for work and I am constantly using my little time spell that I crafted for myself. And every time that I'm late for work and I make sure that I do the spell, I'm not late for work. Is that anecdotal? Sure. But does it work for me? Absolutely. Is that a mystery that you're particularly impressed with? Probably not.
But anyone who's listening to this who has struggles with getting some places on time, they might be extremely impressed with that. They'll
Exactly.
be like,
So
that
then
woman's on to something, by golly.
So then, you ask yourself, so, okay, how would you measure, say, me looking at you, for example, your success on your path? So we've been talking for a little bit of time, and,
Mm-hmm,
I'm generally familiar with the areas that you want to strengthen and improve and what
mm-hmm,
your mission is. What I could say is that, Brigantia is every day. She's putting up her videos, she's doing in her work, and I can see her growth from her channel. I can see her growth in the Discord server. I can see the conversations that she's having. So I would say that you are fulfilling your path and that you are uncovering your own mysteries. What they are, I'd never venture a guess, but I'm sure that they are just as impressive to you as the time spell was for me.
oh, sure. And I find often if we look at where we are at this moment, and then we kind of look back to where we were, say, 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure
Mm-hmm.
that both you and I, and many of our brothers and sisters out there, could probably say, "Oh, that is not at all the same spot as where I'm at now." And I don't think we necessarily see how we grow and change, on a day by day, minute by minute basis. But we get enough life in between us and at a particular point, and I think that is when you start seeing, oh, okay, there has been progress. This is good. Oh, and speaking of daily works, let's rip off the band-aid on this one as well, because I
Uh-oh.
I have encountered, and this is more than one person, so I don't want anyone listening to feel singled out, not by any means. But I have noticed that people who do come from a more traditionalist, coven, initiatory background tend to not really like the idea of a daily practice, or as magic being part of your lifestyle, incorporated into it. Has that something you've noticed yourself, or no?
Well, I try to poke and prod at those type of people all the time because you and I have discussed quite frequently that even mundane chores around the house have certain magical purposes to them. And if you were to come over and observe us in our daily life, even I think sitting in the household, you wouldn't be able to tell the things that we were working behind the scenes, so to speak. Now, with that being said, we know that every action has a correspondence to some sort of magical principle, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
stirring your coffee counterclockwise to banish negative energy for the day, or just waking up and saying hello to the sun and asking for a beautiful day to go to the beach. Those are very tiny things. And to bring it back to normie land, it's no different than like a Catholic saying a prayer
Mm-hmm.
because they are just asking their God to do something for them. We, on the other hand, are influencing the vibrations of the day. We're manipulating the energy that's around and available to us at all times. You do not need to be in circle to feel the energy in nature that is around you at all times. Energy is coming from the earth, it's coming from living beings, it's coming from hormonal teenagers, it's coming from everywhere. So to even ignore the fact that this is constantly present or omnipresent, if you will, is half ass. Sorry for the language.
Oh, please. You hear what I call politicians on my commentary videos. I think we can manage the word ass very, very comfortably.
But yeah, so to not practice on a daily basis, my question of their understanding of the craft has to be my next utterance. How much do you feel incorporated with your surroundings, or is that something that you only feel in circle amongst the group? And why would you feel that way? I don't have an answer for that. They're just rhetorical questions.
It does seem like it would be kind of a bad sign if you were not aware of the ambient energy of the things and the people around you. And that makes me feel very sad because I feel like it's someone who is stuck in that headspace. They are missing out. They're missing out on part of what makes us us. Because the longer I do this and the more I practice and the better I get, the more I am just kind of tuned in. I am feeling the different flows. I can watch those currents, and when I want to, I can join in.
Hmm.
And as far as those energies goes, if I'm just letting them sit there and not really doing anything, well, doesn't that seem like kind of a waste?
It's like leaving your bicycle out in the rain. Your chain's going to get rusty. It's not going to be functionable, and it's not going to get you where you need to go anymore, is it?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And another thing, especially when it says, for instance, like cooking magic, we know that all of our ingredients have certain magical properties. That's just how it's going to be. Well, what's better, for them to just kind of be lumped together with no purpose, or is it better to direct them?
Oh, absolutely. And that's, the majority of your kitchen magic is nothing more than the intent. And this goes back to even old wives' tales, like why grandma chicken noodle soup was the only thing that made you feel better when you were sick, or, why you get homesick from mom's cooking whenever you're out in college, or those little things you don't realize are because the intentions that were given to that meal or through that general activity has a punch. It has a punch.
Oh yeah, especially when it's motivated by love. I mean, I think you don't even have to be a practitioner in order to infuse a meal with love. I mean, how many grandmas do we know who can do exactly that? And just think what a
Hmm.
stronger punch a properly trained witch can do with that. Just
Absolutely.
there's lots of love. You are gonna feel this love. It's gonna be fantastic, and it will all be much better now. I
But
think.
I think that rounds off our point real quick before we
Mm-hmm.
switch gears again,
Sure.
that even though you don't think you're magically inclined, it does show that there's a little bit of magic in all of us.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's possibly tied to our emotional capacity as human beings, because what are emotions and what are detecting them except for an innate human ability to pick up on those energies? It's not just body language and facial expressions. I mean, I've seen even very normal people who are very normal people. They can walk into a room, and if something's off, they're just, oh, is it too late to go back through the door and just avoid
Uh-huh.
whatever storm cloud I just walked into? I mean, and I think it is part of being human. And what makes a witch is, that person who just has a little bit extra of that. And honestly, when I started my studies, it was because I realized that there was something that was a little bit different and off about me. And I'm like, I need to get a handle on this. Because if it starts
Hmm.
controlling me, I don't think that's going to be a very good thing for anybody. What kind of cemented it for you?
The absolute same thing that brought you away from the Jehovah's Witness path. It was kind of that authoritative dictator telling me, well, if somebody doesn't follow this, they're wrong. And you look at people and you're like, but they're good people. So they just don't believe in you and they're wrong. That doesn't make sense to me. So again, it brings me right back to why I was able to reject the idea of a coven off top without giving it a second thought, because I knew that that type of authoritarian religion was not something I was interested in, and it was not something that was going to help build me into a better person.
Oh, 100%. I wasn't sure if I would ever even want to talk to someone who was spiritually like-minded. I knew I wasn't ready when I came right out of the Jehovah's Witness world, and there was a period of time when I just kind of left the issue of spirituality alone, even though I knew I needed to take it up at some point. And when I did start studying the craft, I thought, you know what, I want to learn about the principles. I want to get the idea of how this works, why it works, how I can use it, and I want to study so hard, and I want to try to understand as much as I can that I would feel right about doing it if I was the only person on earth who did. I wanted to have that kind of strength and faith, and you only learn that on your own. No one can give that to you in a group.
No, no one can. And to touch base back to, okay, so that was my initial why do I want a change of religion? Why do I want to upheave my entire upbringing and search for something that makes sense? And how did I land on witchcraft and Wicca? It was having that little bit of insight. You have that intuition, learning that it's not just, oh, common sense. No, some people are not born with that foresight. Some people are not born with active abilities, and it's more than just a gut feeling. Sometimes you're shown premonitions, sometimes you are given small gifts. I've had a telekinesis experience,
Mm-hmm.
I've had premonitions. I am very intuitive, like you said. I am one of those people who can walk into a room and be like, "Oh God, Becky's on her period. I got to go." Okay. Or you can learn how to put up the psychic shields and deal with those situations when you're forced to. But like you said, it goes back into your own experiences and then finding something that you coincide with, something that resonates within yourself, because it doesn't matter if your parents want you to do it, or if your husband wants you to do it, or if your sister-in-law or whoever forces something upon you. If it doesn't make sense to you, it's not going to benefit you.
No, it definitely won't. And I mean, and I know so many people, they don't realize that until they've had some really bad experiences. And I'm not just talking magical bad experiences. I mean, just people out in the world, who are farming out their decision making process and saying, well, everyone else is doing this, so I will. I mean, when you finally hit that brick wall at the end of that road, I mean, you'll learn some very valuable lessons, but you will be learning them in the most painful and the most costly way possible. And this does tie into why I do tend to worry about people who do get initiated and they found this, structure and this authority figure and everything else, and they're all worried about protocols and whether or not they're doing what they're supposed to do. I think it makes people much more likely to not notice things that they should, not realize when
Hmm.
something is going wrong, not to just not ask themselves the question of, well, does so and so even have the right to ask that of me? Or are they out of
Yeah,
line? Because they don't see themselves as having agency in their lives. They are not the authority figures. They think someone else is. And I think that is such a dangerous, dangerous headspace to live in.
sure. But they were indoctrinated that way. Our education system is set up that way. And these are skirting whole other video topics to come. But just very briefly, and trying to keep it contained in the way that, again, we go back to beginners, they don't know. So they're looking for somebody to tell them. And if somebody approaches you with the mentality of, oh, well, I've been doing this for 22 years, and here is what I found works for me, you need to do it because it'll work for you too. think of how many authors have made money off of that premise alone with the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this for dummies series and the that for this series and get rich quick schemes. So people don't want to put in the extra work because they feel like they're doing it wrong. Then they get bashed being told that they are doing it wrong. So it's kind of like they're beaten into that submission.
Which is, I think, how a lot of human submission tends to go. Do this or
Right.
else, and they watch someone else get the else and like, oh, I don't want that, and they don't see a way out, and then they start giving in. And I don't know, it does. I can't begin to tell you just the ongoing concern. It's one of those things. The more I think about it, the more worried I am. It's just this idea of giving up autonomy and doing it willingly, and there are so many different applications for this particular issue.
Subject.
It absolutely. But one thing I do want to get into is that I have noticed that the initiated coven mentality, it does seem to have an emphasis on authority. If, oh, well, I am the one who was properly trained, I went through this process, I had this experience, I have this power structure behind me, therefore I am automatically the adult in the room, and what I say takes precedence over everyone else.
Sure,
that that
absolutely.
that is what has led us to do this show, because I think as solitaries we need to start reclaiming our honor and saying no. The craft
Right.
doesn't belong to you. It does
No,
not belong to you.
and I don't think that going back to our deities, the gods and goddesses really care whether there's one person or there's 10 people, as long as the lessons are being learned and the work is being done. They have much to do with the
Mm-hmm.
people who are actively seeking their guidance to be worried about, oh, I'm not coming out of my room for less than 10 people.
Yeah, which that's a little strange. I'm like, well, but I mean, but the moon is full. Don't we want to go and soak that up and have fun with it? I mean, why do we have to have the other 10 people? I'll be out here by myself. It'll be fine. You'll see. It'll just be good.
It does make for a strange dynamic if you think about it from their perspective
Mm-hmm.
in my eyes, because I worship Celine, and just refreshing and reading about her history, she was a very popular goddess at one point in time, and now she's actually associated with three other goddesses, and they changed her name twice. So unfortunately, not a whole lot of people even follow Selene anymore. She's a very easygoing moon goddess who just, she was responsible for carrying the moon across the sky at night. And now she's just thankful for anybody who keeps her name on the tip of their tongue.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've observed this, but I do find that with solitaries, we do seem to be a little bit more relationship focused, whether it's relationship with our deities or with any animal spirits we might work with or with ancestral spirits. It's just we seem to be a little bit more tuned in with the relationship and also our relationship with the natural world of wanting to find where we fit in. Sometimes I visualize everything as just this whirling ball of water, and it's just this sphere, and there's different currents and tides, and figuring out where we slide into those. I don't think that you're as likely to figure out where you're supposed to be and to follow that current if you have begun with we're just going to punch a hole in the universe and rip open your chakras and infuse things that nature didn't really intend you to have, because I guess you just weren't satisfied with what nature gave you.
Well, that's definitely a huge issue, but I think that you brought an even bigger glaring concern to the forefront here. When you are more preoccupied with impressing your peers, then you're not preoccupied with impressing the nature. You're not
Mm-hmm.
preoccupied with impressing your deity. You're not preoccupied with working on yourself. So what everything that you're doing is for the benefit of somebody else or for what your appearance is to everybody else. And that's not religion, in my opinion. That's a popularity contest or Miss America contest.
Well, it's a something, that's for sure. And I also think it prevents people from learning how to become teachers. Because I think all of us, large or small, at some point we are called to teach something, even if it is just that a random comment and some conversation that just happened to happen, but it was exactly what someone else needed. And if you're not developing yourself into that teacher, if all you can do is just regurgitate the dogma that you've been doing, then uh, it seems like it is a path that has an ending. It feels like a form of worship that is going to go extinct. And, maybe it deserves to.
Yeah, and again, I think that it's all but became extinct to be
Mm-hmm.
in a coven, which is why they're floundering for support now. And because of the way they've propped themselves up, and because of the secret society type of aspect spin that they put on this, there's no way for them to come back from this. Because if I really wanted covens to succeed, then I would break down those rules and those barriers, and I would allow it to be a group of solitaries who get together to perform ritual. Because ultimately, if we're talking about we all celebrate the Sabbats, okay,
Mm-hmm.
not all witches do, let's just put that out there, but just say that you do, and you wanted more energy, or you wanted to infuse your energy with others, because there is ritual for that, and
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to do it on a Sabbath, and you wanted to make it a thing, then why not go about it that way and keep your doors open and allow the web weaving process to work out naturally? Why wouldn't that be a more stable way to go about maintaining coven status?
Oh, I think that would absolutely be more stable. And I've been watching the growth and the structuring of a group called Fellowship of the Northern Traditions. They have
Mm-hmm.
Norse pagans, Celtic pagans, anyone essentially from the northern hemisphere. They're very welcome to come in and join in. They have certain rituals. A lot of it does lean Norse because a lot of people in that group are Norse. But it is very open. It is all about free association. It is about voluntary relationships. And you can tell, you have their videos, and they are greeting each other like old friends or family members. They're getting together. They're excited to be with their loved ones during the holidays. They're looking forward to their rituals. And that's what it really should be. I mean, if you're going to work with some kind of group, it should be about that mutual acceptance and support and building a community, not just here are the people I sit in the same pew with. Community I think is
Not the
something.
popular table at
Yeah,
the lunchroom
yeah,
in high school.
it's not the popular table. It's something where people actually like each other, and that's really hard to build because I think as a society, and in many ways, we have forgotten how. But I don't think that substituting what used to be very organic for people, I don't think it's a good idea to try to have these secret societies and these hardline covens of their way or the highway. I don't see any kind of future for that, and I don't want there to be because it's too authoritarian.
Well, real quick history lesson. So before the Golden Dawn and the New Life Tree and Dardanian and Alexandrian and blah 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 blah, I believe that the idea of a coven came from like-minded individuals who were outcasts from the church, or rather didn't want to participate in the church. They got together on their own time and they practiced whatever they worshiped. Now, it got categorized as witchcraft because of the locale and the types of things that were happening there. But history's not completely sure whether they were practicing what we practice as modern day witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, because they were outcasts and outliers of the church, they were bound to a certain secrecy for their own survival. Not just, oh, can we continue this religion? No, no, no. Like, so they wouldn't die. That's
Mm-hmm.
why they were secret. Now that we've put to bed all the witch trials and the burnings at the stake and all the hoopla with the Salem witch trials and everything else, we don't need that air of secrecy any longer. There's no hard line repercussions for coming out of the broom closet, so to speak. So the whole intent and purpose of a secret society coven has been destroyed by the 19th century.
Yeah, and as you said, it made sense at a certain time period of history. but we don't live there anymore. And to just deny the fact that times have actually changed, to give people this idea of, oh, you gotta be secret because this could happen and they might get you. I don't like any kind of case that's built on fear. I don't think we should be making decisions in life, let alone our spiritual lives, that are based on fear. And that's why I think conversations like this are so necessary, and I hope more solitaries like us start taking them up so that they can see, oh, it's not just, Brigantia, Blackbird, and Wiccan Conservative who think X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, there's a lot of other people who've been practicing a long time who are saying, we need to get beyond this point. We need to be able to evolve. We need to accept that we're in the modern world, and we have enough modern problems to deal with without trying to dredge up the past ones.
Absolutely. We become a much more civilized, polite society, and you can see that across the board in many different aspects, not just religious ones. We used to execute homosexuals, we used to banish unwed mothers. There's all different kinds of things that have kind of come out of the taboo realm and made their way into normalcy. Me personally, I would like to see Wicca become the next thing. Now, again, the whole revivalist thing in the 90s was more or less to give fame to the founders. But
Mm-hmm.
if you take away the philosophy of what they actually spoke, get beyond ritual, get
Mm-hmm.
beyond being in a group, and actually look at the principles, you will find a majority of the practitioners that have done their due diligence on their own are just as capable as being elders or mentors to new witches as a coven leader would be.
And in some ways, I honestly think that we are a little bit better suited. And I say that specifically because we had self discipline. We didn't have anyone standing over us, rapping our knuckles. We didn't have someone saying, this is your homework and it is my expectation that you cover these concepts. We have had to pick and choose what material and at what time to prioritize what. We have had to hold ourselves accountable. So when the time comes and someone asks, how is this done? We have experiences from the trenches that we can share. We're not just, here's a copy of my old workbook, go to town with
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, that's not what we do. It's like, well, for you'll need your notebook. No, no, not to take notes from me. You need to take notes for yourself. What do you think
Right,
is important? What matters to
right.
you?
Now, let me address that real quickly too, because new witches, when you ask a witch, a seasoned witch, hey, what worked for you or what did this, you might get an inconspicuous answer that sounds like gibberish, and we might defer you to do your own kind of building. But it's not because we're looking down on you, it's because we don't have your perspective. We're not in your shoes. So the best way for you to reach a conclusion is literally just to follow our advice and do the work. That's all I can
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And I would also like to point out we don't say go do your homework because we're being lazy. Sometimes people ask a question and they're not in a position to where a good conversation would really be possible. They need to do some due diligence first, and then afterwards they have some ideas to kind of go back and forth with you on. And I think it's okay to be at the very beginning. That is totally fine. Just understand there are some conversations that are going to happen a little bit later in your development once you have a grasp of some of the fundamentals. And then, we'll probably bore you to tears, but but you have to have some context first, and you got to find that context for yourself.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, we have been gassing away for almost an hour now. Is there anything else you can think of
We sure have.
on the initiation issue? Anything you want to add before we go, or do you think we've gotten it for the time being?
I would open the floor to the comments section. If there's any newbies or any people out there who have been traveling the path for any amount of time, feel free to put your input into the comments section. Maybe you've thought of something or you've encountered something that we haven't necessarily touched base upon, but we've hit a lot of topics.
That we have. But if someone comes up with something we didn't think of, please tell us because I would love to revisit it. I would not mind at all if it's a little bit of an ongoing conversation. So,
Not at all.
I guess that's it for now. Well, Wiccan Conservative, where can people find you?
I am on YouTube at Wiccan Conservative for now. You can find me on Facebook under Georgia Liberty, but I don't post there. Normally, if you're just looking for the videos, you can't find it on YouTube, pop over to the Facebook page. They will be posted there. I'm trying to syndicate on Rumble, so most of my content is also on Rumble. It's very easy. Wiccan Conservative on Rumble and Podbean. If anybody's into the audio only, that podcast is relatively new. It's a little bit behind on content, but if you're looking for audio only and I get enough followers, then maybe I'll go ahead and continue doing the audio only as well.
All right, woohoo! Well, I
All
think
right.
that's it, everybody. If you want to have anything to say to us, as Wiccan Conservative just invited you, please let us know in the comments. Or even, what would be much more better, come see us on Discord at Blackbird's Brew. As always, there is a link to join in the description box below. We would be very happy to have you. We welcome new faces, and there's no shortage of conversation there. I can guarantee you that. So,
That's right.
it for now. Bye bye.